Welcome to the Cultivating Business Growth Podcast, bringing you bi-weekly discussions designed to help you grow your business and create the lifestyle you desire. Elevate your business with proven strategies from virtual CFOs, CPAs, and business advisors. We discuss real-world challenges solved with actionable steps that get you the results you need both in business and building the life you deserve.
Hello and welcome to episode number 157 of the Cultivating Business Growth Podcast, brought to you by PJS & Co. CPAs. I'm your host, Megan Spicer, and today we are talking about how to have a stress-free, or as close to it, tax season as possible as a business owner. And in order to help me tackle that, I have Katina Peters, partner and CPA, CFO here at PJS & Co. CPAs. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Megan. Thanks. Good to be here, as always.
Yeah, you're going to help us decrease our stress levels. So that's always good.
Yes. We can all use a little bit more of that in our lives, I'm sure. It's always a good thing.
So a big part of stress for tax season is just kind of fear of the unknown if you haven't even looked at it, right? Like that's a big part of it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you can be helpful in, like tax planning is a huge lifesaver in this arena. So I want to put that out there. If you are interested in getting tax planning, being more prepared, being more proactive with that type of thing, we do offer that here at PJS & Co. CPAs. You can get a free discovery call, talk about what that would look like, and help decrease your stress levels, not just during tax time, but during the whole year. Because I know it's a thing that, can kind of keep you up at night throughout the year as you're kind of navigating business ownership. So just want to kind of prep and overall just, going into this conversation, knowing that it doesn't have to be this way.
Yes. Planning generally reduces stress levels, I think, planning of any kind, right? So similar thing here, when you have more of a known situation, it's going to reduce your stress levels. When you have, obviously expectation gaps create stress too. So if you don't have those good expectations set up front, which again means that you're kind of ahead of the curve, doing a little bit more, as you go or in the planning phases. So that will definitely help with that. So having things, organized, having things systematized, which we'll go into a little bit more as well, and having those discussions early gets you in a situation where you're prepared. You're not trying to scramble at the last minute for tight deadlines and worried about penalties and things because you're not doing things on time or not paying payments on time for your estimates, et cetera. So all those things we can make better with some suggestions here as we talk today. So.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about some of the common challenges and maybe why these things happen for business owners before we get into how to tackle them.
Yeah, I think, kind of going into it, we're talking about, again, the stressors that we're talking about, the challenges happen a lot of times. Like everybody has a busy life and, business owners, especially, they have busy things going on in their business. They have things going on in their personal lives. And sometimes our own, sanity and our own things that we should be taking care of for ourselves tend to fall to the bottom of that list, right? So we find that the best approach really to look at, tackling these kinds of things is to work it into kind of your routine, so to speak, right? Anything that you can do, you're doing it, on a regular basis. You're working on meetings with your tax advisor. You're, doing those kinds of things so that you're not pushing things down the line. Because as you, procrastinate those things, then the stressors increase, right? Because you're like, you keep procrastinating. And I think a lot of times too, in your mind, it becomes a big, oh, I have to do this, it's going to take forever thing, which, sometimes maybe is true if you've put it off long enough, and other times maybe it's not. You can get some help. So, I think a lot of it has to do with having good, systems in place, having those regular touch points in place, having we've talked a lot about accountability, in this podcast before. So setting those systems and structures of accountability for yourself and your advisors, that you're, doing the things that you need to do as you go along the year, so that when you're hitting the end of the year and tax time and those types of things, you already have a lot of that groundwork laid down. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because a lot of times when things are going well, it becomes easy to not think about the things that we should be doing or the things that help in stressful situations, right? We're like, oh, things are good. I'm not stressing. I don't need those tools. But really, the only reason that you're not stressing right now is because you were using those. So,
right, for sure, definitely.
So let's kind of shift and talk about some of the benefits, and they may be, obviously the biggest benefit is like, you're not stressing. But what are some of the benefits, some of the other benefits of preparing early?
Yeah, for sure. I think, those regular touch points and good systems and communication is definitely going to help reduce error that might occur in tax preparation or estimate planning, depending, on what you're looking at. But those kinds of things, because you're, taking the time, you're not scrambling, you're not rushing, you're not, those kinds of things, you're not going to miss things, that you would maybe miss if you're scrambling at the last minute or what have you. There's also a good understanding. It kind of comes back in a way to that expectation. Like if we're doing tax planning, we have an expectation of what it's going to look like. And if it doesn't look like that, we're going to step back and be like, why doesn't it look like what we expected? And sometimes there's great reasons for that. Things change, from what we had planned for, what have you. But sometimes it's like, oh, because this mistake happened in the entry, this shouldn't have been coded that way. It's not right. Those kinds of things. It just causes us to maybe dig a little deeper and to, bridging that expectation gap so that we are able to reduce potential errors on that too. So it's definitely helpful to reduce any last minute errors and those types of things. So obviously also setting that expectation for cash flow, right? So you have an idea, okay, you know what to expect, like you're going to owe or what have you. You've made some estimated payments. You just have that, okay, I know this is what's coming, at least, within reason, relatively speaking. So we're not going to be exact, but you'll have that out there, and then you'll know, okay, I need to have this much money saved up in my bank account. I need to set down this type of payment plan or savings plan to set things aside. So that definitely is another side of the stressor, I guess I would say, that you know what you need and you've planned for it, and then you have it available so that it's not a stressor at that point, hopefully. So, yep. And then, again, we have, errors, but then there's also potential opportunities and things that could get missed too. Like maybe there's some special credits you could have applied for, but because it was last minute and it was rushed, maybe you weren't able to, or your tax preparer weren't able to step back and take that time to really think through, all the potential credits and deductions that maybe you don't have the information for, but we could have spent a little more time and gone through and done those things. Again, planning will help with that too, because now we're not in the crunch, right? And we're doing planning. So we go out and look, okay, are there additional credits that this business might qualify for, et cetera? So we're, digging through those things ahead of time as well. So that's another benefit of doing these things in advance and in a systemized way.
Got it. All right. So why don't we dive into some of the actionable steps for a stress-free tax season?
Okay, great. And I know I keep bringing up the systematize. I know us accountants, we like our systems, right? So, but it does help a lot. So what you want to do is build in systems of checklists, of systems of meetings that you're putting on your calendar. So you want to have good books, right? We've stressed about the good books for many reasons. This is one of the reasons, obviously, to better manage your business and grow and strategize and all those things. But you want to have a good system for getting your books done on a regular basis, timely, and be able to do them correctly. So have like a reconciliation process that we've talked about where you're making sure things are correct. So, that's one side of it there for sure. We want to use likely an accounting software, right, for your business. So you're using the tools to make it hopefully as painless as possible. I know us accountants like doing it, but a lot of people don't. So but you're using those tools, right, to make this process better on you as you're going through. And again, all those processes and procedures you're systematizing so that it's smooth and it's being done on a regular basis. So you're not scrambling, in December or January or February, or whatever month, to try to like smoosh all your bookkeeping for the whole year into the system. And that's very stressful and, time consuming, or can be. So you want to just do it along the way. Of course, you also can't plan if you don't do it along the way, right? No accountant can tell you like what your tax situation is going to look like if they don't have something to work from, right? So we need to see what's happening during the year so that we can make sure that we're planning for it. So definitely, coming back to, we want to have those good systems in our business to keep track of our books and our financial situation so that we know what to do. We do also want to be talking with our tax advisor, tax preparer on a regular basis. You probably won't talk to him too much other than getting your tax return until like May or June, right? Because they kind of are kind of pretty slammed. Like you're probably meeting with them, talking about your actual tax return and, reviewing it and all those kinds of things. But then you should be moving into kind of that mid-year, May through July-ish season of, okay, how about this next upcoming year, right? What's happening with the business? What do we think, it's going to look like hopefully by the first half of the year, we kind of have the first half of the year books done so we can see what do we think the next half of the year looks like. Are there any big tax changes coming up that are going to affect my situation, my business's situation, things like that are in the works or that we know have already been passed that are coming into effect, having all those conversations. And then also, again, some planning. So, okay, at this, I really like the mid-year mark because then we have a good, solid 6 months that we can take a look at. We can project for the rest of the year. And then we can say, okay, based on this, here's what your tax burden looks like or your tax situation looks like. And hopefully if we're making money, we're paying taxes. So let's just go with that. We're making money, which is great in the business. So we're going to owe some taxes at the end of the year. So we know what that number looks like. So now we have, the rest of the year to plan for that. So, okay, we know we need to save $50,000 or $100,000 or, whatever that number is. We need to save that. So now we work into our business plan and our cash flow plan, putting that money aside so that we have that saved up. And we may make some, depending on the circumstances, we may make some estimated tax payments at certain times of the year as well. Or we may not, just kind of depends on the circumstance. So I would definitely suggest that you're proactive as a business owner and making sure that your tax advisor is meeting with you and talking to you about these things. Hopefully they're reaching out to you to do that. And if they're not, you definitely want to come from your end as well. But hopefully it's kind of that, they're reaching out to you, you're reaching out to them. And don't put it off too long. Like, take the help. I know it's the last thing everybody wants to talk about, probably, or almost the last thing. But it's better to just sit down, do it. It's typically not terribly painful process to go through. And then, it's better to know what you're dealing with, right? Than to go into the unknown stressful situation, get slapped with a big bill you weren't expecting and you haven't saved the money up for it. That's way worse, right? So go through the process, have those meetings. And then I would say, again, usually right before the end of the year, typically since somewhere November-ish, we usually do another kind of final expectation setting. Like, okay, we've been through the rest of the year. We know we have maybe a month and a half or so to get through. What does it look like? Also, are there any things planning wise that we want to do before the end of the year? There's certain things that we can do. Maybe we make some additional retirement contributions, or maybe we change, how we're doing certain things, but it has to be done before the year closes out. So we want to make sure that we have that opportunity to think ahead, to do anything differently that maybe if we hadn't already been doing it during the year, that we can do these things and that'll help our tax situation. So we want to do that. And that kind of gets that final, more exacting expectation setting, because now we've been through the rest of a lot of the year and know, pretty good where we're going to land. So we want to make sure that we're doing those kinds of things and having those conversations. I do know that there are some tax preparers that will prepare estimates, like with your tax return that they do. They prepare estimated tax payment vouchers for you that you can pay in, which you certainly can do that. But that's typically, most systems are kind of spitting out, if you do the same as last year, here's what here's what we expect for next year. Right. So they're not necessarily nothing. So they're helpful in that regard, but it doesn't replace actually meeting and talking and looking at your current year situation, because it's likely not the same as last year. And there's new tax laws. There's just things that are going to affect that. So don't assume that those are just going to take care of you, and that you're going to just be in the same situation next year. So want to make sure that you're having those meetings and talking through those things for sure.
Yeah. Well, as a non-tax professional, that's something that stuck out to me, because I'm like, oh, okay. You kind of get into a groove, right? When your business is similar from year to year, but not being in that industry, right? I don't even consider tax law changes. It's not really on my radar. I'm like, oh, I wouldn't even think about that. So to have somebody that is up on what's changing, because some big changes do happen occasionally where it is going to really impact you. So having that conversation and just having somebody that's aware of those things that you're not even considering is so important. And I know you mentioned too, like the importance of industry specific CPAs and CFOs too, like having somebody that's, knows dental, that knows construction, that can really help you with your specific challenges too.
Yeah. There's definitely some very specific laws around different industries and things like that. So you do want to make sure that you're using somebody that really understands the different elections you can make as that business, and the different impacts it's going to have on you in that industry, because it is just a very different situation. So you make sure that you got somebody that really understands your industry, understands the laws that affect your industry on the tax side, and is proactively helping you. We don't really talk about elections and things like that, but proactively helping you make decisions about different tax elections that you can make. Like, should I file a cash? Should I file an accrual? Should I file percentage of completion? There's a lot, if you're in construction, for example, there's a lot of different ways, and there's actually 6 different methodologies, or maybe more out there even, but 6 primarily used ones for just percentage of completion considerations in different businesses. So it's it can be, very technical, and, you want to make sure that you're dealing with somebody that can help you make the right selections, so you're getting the best situation for your business, because that can make a big difference. And there's timelines for those elections too. Like, you can only do them certain times, you can, have to go through certain processes, so all those types of things you want to make sure you're doing. There's also generally depreciation elections that you can make, and different options there for equipment that you might be buying, things like that you want to know what are the different options and elections that you can make under that, and what the impact looks like, what's the best for you. So I want to make sure you're talking through those kinds of things, and, deciding when to purchase things, maybe based on that, especially if you're getting close to the end of the year. Maybe this year is better, maybe next year is better, depending on the tax laws and the elections you're looking at. So for sure.
Yeah, that's great to know. ChatGPT is not going to bring that up to you guys if you are trying to go through your taxes, unless you ask it specifically.
Yes.
So
good, but you have to be really, really specific about exactly what you're looking for. And then you probably have to check it too, just to make sure.
That's the thing. Like, everybody's like, oh, we can do everything through ChatGPT now. And I mean, to a point, but there's always the but, so that's really good to know.
Yeah, for sure.
So now let's shift gears, because we've gone through all those actionable steps. I think those are really good tools to have for a business owner, to actually start putting those into action. But what are some tools and resources that can help simplify the tax season too? Because we need to talk about those.
Yeah, for sure. I think probably, especially as a business owner, one of the number one tools that you have at your disposal is going to be your accounting system. So you want to have that accounting system, QuickBooks Zero. There's other options out there, of course, as well. You want to make sure you're using something that has really good controls, reconciliation functionality, and reporting functionality, because those are going to be super important when it comes to doing all these things. Obviously there's also payroll, systems and tools, and Gusto and ADP and some of the others. We want to make sure that we have good tools for that too, that we're using good companies, good, because it's kind of important, or it is very important, I guess, that you have especially the reporting tools coming in. But as we talked about before, reports are only, if the reporting tool is good, they're only as good as what you're putting in and reconciling through. So you have to make sure that you're using all those kinds of things. Hopefully your tax preparer is providing you with what is needed, as far as forms and things that they need when they're preparing your tax return. They'll likely have access to your books. At least that's how we do it. We want to make sure that we're able to kind of dig in there, check things out, take a look at stuff, pull what we need. But there's still forms and things that you'll need. So there's checklists and whatnot. So whether so if you're using someone, hopefully they're giving you checklists and stuff like that. Otherwise, you can definitely put together a checklist or find an online checklist, something like that you can go through and be like, okay, these are the important steps that I need to be taking. These are the important documents I need to be keeping track of and putting together, those kinds of things, to make sure that you have that as well. And of course, we've, talked about your outsourcing options. Obviously, as a tax preparer and business owner, would not recommend that you prepare your own taxes unless you're a tax preparer. You should have someone who knows all the ins and outs. I mean, the tax books, even for the summarized tax laws, are like this thick, and that's just the summary of all the tax laws. So there's a lot to know. And as we talked about, even in specific industries, there's a lot to know. So even further delving into that. So use your people that you're outsourcing to, your bookkeepers, your CPAs, your virtual CFOs or in-house CFOs, and your tax professionals to kind of pull all together. And I think it's super important too that there becomes this really big disconnect between the bookkeepers, the CPAs, and the tax preparers if they're especially not in the same company. Not that they need to be in the same company, but the important thing is to make sure everybody's communicating, like bring them all together so that they all are on the same page. And also financial planners, a lot of times they'll be like, I can't tell you the number of times there's been like a back and forth with, oh, my financial planner wants me to do this with my retirement thing. And they say it does this. And we're like, well, no, it doesn't do that. Like not in your situation or whatever. And back and forth we go. So, typically I just kind of like maybe one or two back and forth. And I'm like, okay, wait, we all need to get like on a call. We need to sit down together. We need to see, okay, what is it that your financial planner is trying to accomplish? Right. How does it really impact the tax? Is it the best option so that, we're all on the same page? Because, we also don't want to be like, well, we're recommending this stuff for a tax situation and it's creating problems over here.
Right.
That
clients in the middle, like, I don't understand any of this. I'm just
right. So I definitely think it's important to like have all those people get together, make sure they're, communicating and on the same page, because that definitely can make things a lot more smooth and not have to create a lot of, craziness around year end when people are trying to understand each other, but they all know where they're going and heading and things like that. So definitely that too. And of course, education is always good, having educational resources as a business owner, blogs, podcasts, obviously if you're listening to this podcast, which is educational. That's what we design it to do, things like that. So, business courses to at least gain, obviously we wouldn't expect someone to become a tax expert unless that's their business, right? But, knowing enough to just have good questions, and definitely don't hesitate to ask questions. Like I've always like please ask me questions. I don't expect you to understand every single calculation or page of this tax return, but I want you to understand enough that you know what's going on with your business. So make sure you just ask questions, and hopefully you're working with somebody that's willing to sit down and explain it to you. I have had some complaints about people, or from people, about, either they're too busy, or they don't talk, they don't bring the discussion down to an educational level. They're just talking up here in all these technical terms. So, it is important, and, you're the business owner. So just encourage you to ask those questions to make sure you're gaining at least a level of understanding, that you're comfortable, and you know a little bit about what's going on in that situation. So you're not just signing a return, not knowing what it says or if it's right or not. Ultimately, you're on the hook for that return too. So you need to understand what it says. Make sure that you're getting good education from your people that are helping you, your tax preparers, your CPAs, CFOs, et cetera. So.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. You want to feel empowered by learning more information, not like you're at the mercy of, okay, just sign my life away here without fully understanding.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end. We've gone through some common challenges as well as some actionable steps that you can take to reduce your stress, and covered some of the tools and resources that are going to help simplify the tax season for you and your business. So I want to come back to kind of just overarchingly, do you have anything that you want to highlight for our listeners as we try to prepare them for a less stressful tax season? Or I'm scared to even say stress-free. I feel like over-promising. I don't know expectations.
Right. Less stressful is always much better. All right. So I think if I haven't said it enough, systematize, be proactive. Those are the things they'll bring your stress levels down and give you the best results and outcomes, and even more importantly. So that's what you want to do.
Fantastic. And like I said, back at the beginning of the episode, we are always here to help support you, empower you, help educate you on those things. So if you're interested in working with us and getting tax planning, helping reduce that stress, helping to understand your business at a deeper level, please feel free to reach out. We can be reached at pjscpas.com/contact or info@pjscpas.com. Thank you so much. Thanks, Katina, for joining us and covering all of that fantastic information. Keep that momentum going, and we will see you next time.